Hello, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy again, back with another little update about the Ends With Us saga. I've been away for a couple of days because I was showing my nephew and his wife and baby daughter who are over from Japan. I was busy showing them around the Scottish Highlands. So I wasn't checking in a lot with what's going on, and then kind of when I finally got to, I thought, gosh, a lot has happened in a couple of days, hasn't it? And I'm kind of glad that I wasn't available to chip in on it straight away because it was so fast moving that you'd more anybody kind of commentating, you would kind of commented on it and then the story had changed so fast. So it was kind of helpful really that because otherwise I'd have been probably dashing off making a video and then it would have been almost irrelevant in a way. But yeah, let's kind of dive into it and let's talk about it because it is interesting. Because kind of like, I guess at this point in time now, some people will be thinking kind of Bryan Freedman has made some kind of rookie error or something like that because he's been shot down because the letter kind of that he submitted to Judge Lyman's docket has been struck, as has the affidavit that he provided about the phone conversation he had with some source connected to Taylor Swift. Both of those have been struck from the record. And this is kind of what I guess is tough for us that live by our emotions and justice and fairness and who's right and who's wrong. And kind of why the courts are kind of helpful in a way because they kind of make you say, no, you have to be neutral no matter what's going on. You have to kind of stick to the letter of the law and just take some of that emotion out of it. Don't freak out. Because it made a lot of sense when you looked at the details. It's because that letter that Bryan Freedman submitted, the details of his conversation, I believe that he had sometime around the 14th of February with this source close to Taylor's camp. The letter itself that Freedman submitted kind of didn't ask for the judge to do anything. It wasn't proving or disproving something. It was about something that was going on in the District of Columbia Court, which is where the subpoena to do with Taylor Swift is going on. So really all the judge could look at it was and say, well, it's kind of nothing to do with me. I can't action this. It's not really telling me anything that's relevant to the points that I have to look at. It seems a bit sensationalist. I have to kind of just wrap on the fingers and tell him don't do that again because apparently he could have kind of submitted that under the radar kind of thing. There are ways and means that he could have submitted that had he wanted to and it not been public. So kind of, I guess some people are thinking it makes Bryan Freedman look a bit stupid or makes it look like that he's acted irrationally or in the heat of the moment. But my feeling is it's all a lot more calculated than that. I don't even necessarily think this was entirely about getting a press response to it. And why I think that kind of Bryan is more hands-off and he's kind of keeping more quiet than Lively's party who are raising thing after thing after thing and more motions and more filings for dismissal and all the rest of it. They're far more, gung-ho litigiously or whatever the correct terminology is. But it's like I was listening to Omar on the Tilted Lawyer. I think it was Omar on the Tilted Lawyer today that said it. Maybe it wasn't him, but I think it was. That says kind of the reason Lively's side looks more active is that they know kind of they're on a bit of they're struggling. So they kind of look busy and they're kind of doing more of a smoke screen, if you like. They have to make it look really good, like they're thinking of everything. They're literally grasping at straws in a way. Whereas Freedman, I think what Freedman is doing is, I think he has a lot more information than we realise he has, and a lot more ways he can play it. So I feel what Freedman is doing is step by step waiting to see how it unfolds, and then he will change his strategy. I think Freedman is playing this game in order to wreak the worst damage that he possibly can on Blake Lively. Freedman, to me, he wouldn't have gone to those lengths over the last couple of days if he wasn't absolutely sure of Justin's innocence. Not in that he's a perfect human being, but or necessarily that some of the things that happened weren't awkward or could have been misconstrued, because apparently Justin has some neurodivergence that we don't know the full context of or how it shows up for him. But you know yourself, if you've had any dealings with somebody with some kind of neurodivergency, sometimes it can, in a conversation, it can seem like it's all about them. But that is them just kind of trying to relate to you in terms of what they know or what they understand, or they're trying to emote in a different way. So somebody that's not neurodivergent, it can seem like, oh, you've just switched the conversation right back to you and it's all about you and you cause a scene everywhere or whatever it is, or you say things that kind of make me bristle or whatever it is. But it's kind of, the brain, I guess, is constantly working really hard as to how can I connect with these people that I don't truly understand or seem to gel with, you know what I mean? So there may have been a bit of that going on. So possibly there have been times where Justin has kind of like what would appear to be quite blunt or something with Blake. I don't know, however it's being misconstrued, and Blake kind of not being an emotionally intelligent person, I don't think, possibly hasn't clocked people like this before, and kind of part of it is like she doesn't like that kind of, he can't be manipulated by feminine wiles and such, and that he's not bothered about straying from his wife or anything, or not being bothered about having flirtatious conversations with women that he's not in a love relationship with. You know, that doesn't interest him. He doesn't understand maybe why she would try to emote like that. And I imagine there's been plenty of times where Justin has felt really, really uncomfortable with some of the conversations he's had to be a party to involving Blake and Ryan. So Bryan, yeah, I do feel like this isn't a misstep. I think it's part of a ploy. And it's also, it's like I say, I think if he can make this criminal, if he can find a way to make this criminal, he will. And otherwise he's just going to go for the best possible way that he can get the most money out of Blake and Ryan and the apology and whatever else he deems is necessary. But yeah, what is interesting is how everybody as well is speculating over who this source is in Taylor's camp. So kind of, you might want to drop me a comment below and just tell me what your thoughts are. My first thought was this was Andrea Swift. Now, I could be entirely wrong. And I thought, well, if it's not Andrea, I believe it's Paine, the publicist. And if it's not her, I believe it might even be Austin Swift. But he's kind of, I don't know why I'm not being pulled to Scott. I'm not being pulled to Daddy Swift. I'm being pulled to Mama Swift. And I think it's because, you know, I think Taylor would probably say that her mother is her person. I think she's said that before. I think she probably said that in the Miss Americana documentary. And you imagine Taylor has had 2 full-on years of doing this Eras tour. This kind of should, I don't know whether she's intending to take a full year off while she thinks about next steps, and whether she's going further forward with Travis and what that's going to look like, or whether there's babies in the future. You imagine, I imagine she's maybe taking the best part of this year to formulate next steps and have a really good rest. And now look what's happened to her. She's been dragged into like arguably the biggest court case of the decade. I know there's the Diddy one going on and various other ones. I'm not going to get across all the court cases that are going on. But I think Mama Swift here would be the most outraged by what's going on, that in her daughter's rest time, her downtime, when she wanted to go private and deal with her own stuff and have a rest and enjoy being in a relationship and all of that, that she's been dragged into this. I think Mama Swift would be the most enraged. I don't know about you. And I think Paine would be a close second, and it might be her that knows somebody that Bryan Freedman knows and the mutual acquaintance. But I feel like it might be Mama Swift that's reached out, but I could be wrong, but that would be my feeling. And I feel like during that hour-long conversation that Freedman refers to, that happened kind of on Valentine's Day, I believe, I feel he will have mooted several ways in which he can assist with what's going on with Taylor while still doing the best job for his client. And I think this thing that's happened over the last couple of days isn't necessarily about just making Blake look bad or anything like that and making her look more of an extortionist. I believe it's more about how can I make this work better for Taylor with this person's help. You know, because he's kind of said, isn't he? I know who it is. I don't want to tell you who it is right now, but if you drop me a court order, I will tell you. So it's like I'm, you know, quite open to telling you, isn't it? But if it's not entirely necessary, then I'd like to keep the name out of it. And all of that just makes me think Mama Swift. I don't know why, but it does. But I don't think Bryan Freedman did not expect this thing to be struck and his knuckles to be wrapped and all of that. I think he expected that. And I don't think it will bother him in the slightest. I think he's worked out in his head what is the best way to handle this. And that is the way, because it is about Taylor's supposed to be resting. She's supposed to be having a time out. How can we best kind of deflect at least some of it so there's not really terrible negative things going on about her and huge conspiracy theories and all of the rest of it? I think it's a bit of that. And it does show also a pattern of behaviour, doesn't it, of Blake's, that this is the exact tactics that clearly she's been using for some time with various different people. And it's clearly what she did to Justin, you know, in terms of how many times did they demand that either he gave way on things like writing the PGA letter and having to cave on that, and, you know, having to cave to the original 17 points of coming back to work, and then, you know, and until it got to the one time where Justin and his side refused to take responsibility for Blake Lively's personality, really, and that the public didn't like it. You know, I mean, if he'd have agreed to that and said that statement, that would have meant that he was taking responsibility for all of that marketing ploy of florals over DV and, yeah, let's push the booze, let's drag as many of your products into it as possible, Blake. That would have been Justin taking responsibility for all of that, which was ridiculous. But yeah, clearly extortion is a pattern of behaviour with Blake Lively, and I could absolutely see. I mean, you imagine if you're Mama Swift, say, for the purposes of this video, and you hear through sources or Venable, Taylor's lawyer or whoever it is, that your daughter's best friend or one of her friend group was intending to release 10 years of your daughter's text messages. And you know what I mean? We've all said stupid stuff by text message, haven't we? Or vented things that we don't actually mean, or our egos have been busy judging or villainizing or saying inappropriate sexual things or whatever it is to somebody that you believe you are in a confidence with, you know, that you feel safe with. I'm sure there's, you know, terrible stuff maybe that, you know, wouldn't make us think that well of Taylor Swift, taken out of context. You know what I mean? So you imagine, I think Mama Swift would be the most outraged by the idea of a friend doing that to Taylor in her down year when she's supposed to be having a rest. I mean, you imagine their camp. This Eras Tour has been like the pinnacle of everything that Taylor has worked for. And before it's even finished, you've got this a-hole Blake who wants to just who has no qualms about just entirely eradicating that legacy and making this the talking point rather than the Eras Tour and all of that. So that to me flags that there's been an awful lot of jealousy there as well. And now it's a case of, well, if I can't use you for my own purposes, I feel quite happy to destroy you. I mean, that's basically Blake's point of view. If you're not of use to me, I don't want you being more powerful than me, for sure. I mean, Taylor was more powerful than her anyway. But like when it's of no use to Blake anymore, then she has no qualms whatsoever about trying to destroy it or tarnish her name or destroy her entire legacy, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, what I would say about Freedman is that I do not believe this is a misstep on his part. He's too knowledgeable. He's been around the block God knows how many times. There's no way that he didn't know that what happened kind of yesterday or whenever it was, when everything got struck. I don't believe there's any way that he didn't really suspect that would happen. But I think for the purpose of whatever he has agreed with this source in Taylor's camp, I believe that this was the plan that he came up with, and that secretly underneath there is all sorts of things going on that we do not know about. I think Freedman is carefully weaving together all these strands behind the scenes, and he's not going to use anything that he has until he absolutely is sure that it is the right time to do it, because I think he's waiting, like I said earlier, just to see how big a case, in whatever terms it be, civil or federal or whatever. I think he's carefully navigating it in order to wreak the most damage on Blake Lively's camp. And it's like, it's a tricky one for me because I am following A Course in Miracles and stuff like that, and I totally agree that we're in this idea of forgiveness and not living by ego mind and revenge and who's right and who's wrong. But I also believe in that thing of, I do believe this case and others like it do specifically come into our life to kind of hold up a mirror to our own behaviour, and there's something to show us about it all, because otherwise it serves no purpose. And it is far more widespread, this case, than just a he said, she said, because it's like we've said before, it brings into question the Me Too movement, how we treat each other. You know, this is what happens when you don't have genuine friendships, when it's transactional with people, when you groom people rather than appreciate them for who they are. And you know what I mean? There is no doubt in my mind that Blake cultivated this relationship with Taylor Swift for terms of power. The amount of time she bandied Taylor's name all over that movie during that promo, that speaks to me that she was already very nervous of where it was going. You know, she would have had all these, that she were probably already in talks with the New York Times over the article and stuff like that. So during that promo time, she spread Taylor's name all over the place because she knew that she would need some deflection and she would need to look powerful and she would need to look like a lot of this wasn't coming from me. No, in order to have Taylor's song, that composer had to be fired and this, that and the other. But that to me is like what people do. You know, like when people say terrible things to you or question a behaviour of yours, it's often projection. And it's them that have those feelings or would do that thing, but they project it onto you. That's like a classic, somebody that's really emotionally unintelligent would do. And I think we see that with Blake all the time. How many times now have we had her found out after the fact something she's accused Justin of or his team of is exactly what she is doing or they are doing? Complete projection, no sense of accountability for what she is doing or her behaviour. It's always somebody else that did it. Then you find out, what, you did that exact same thing. They haven't done it. That's what you did. You know, and that's the thing here. So I guess as well, that's why Bryan has to be really careful, because he's dealing with people that are highly unpredictable and have no qualms about who they damage in the process. So he has to kind of let a lot fly under the radar and be dealing with it underneath until he sees which way they go. But I think at this point in time as well, I imagine Ryan Reynolds is almost in hate with his wife. I really, really do, because I'm not saying Ryan is a good person by any means. I can barely look at him these days, and those weird expressions that he pulls that now in hindsight, they just look quite malignant and just completely superficial, and I just think it's a completely different thing underneath. But I think a lot of his thing is that he's constantly fighting fires with a wife. I mean, I don't like to talk in terms of controlling his wife, but that's how he feels. He has no control over. He can tell, I'm sure she's the kind of person that he can say something to her that this is how it has to go. I need you to do this. And then 2 seconds later, she's saying the wrong thing to the wrong person, and she's created another thing. You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of my feeling on it at the moment. Although some people do say, don't they, some people's perspective is that they think that the original dragon text, where that text was composed to Justin, some people do think that that was Ryan that wrote that text. Maybe not, I don't know. You can let me know your feelings on that. But yeah, if you're feeling a bit squashed or flat or enraged about what's happened with Bryan Freedman in the last couple of days, I wouldn't worry about it, because it doesn't mean that that avenue can't be followed. He just needs to take it to the appropriate side of the equation, the District of Columbia, if you like. But I think it's been something that was agreed with the person on Taylor's team, that we need to kind of switch up the narrative, get more control of it. Whatever Taylor has maybe agreed to do in the background, it has to be done in a certain way that makes it comfortable for her, that's acceptable to her, given she's supposed to be resting and having a nice time and all of the rest of it. I think Freedman has said, look, I can do this, and I'll take that on the chin, and I know my knuckles are going to get wrapped and the rest of it, but I just think it's part of the deal. But yeah, you let me know who you think this source on Taylor's side might be. I mean, I tend to trust my intuition, and I'm developing that all the time. But I don't know, something just says Mama Swift or Tree to me. Mama Swift or Tree. Mama Swift would be the most enraged, because it was more Mama Swift I got the feeling of, during the Reputation tour era, where Taylor had taken it on the chin from the Kardashian family and all of that. If you've watched the Miss Americana documentary, there's that clip where Mama Swift is hugging Taylor, and basically something like, you took that bag of shit and turned it into this, all that crap they did to you basically, and you made this out of it. God, I'm getting teary just thinking about it. But I think off the back of the Eras tour and how hard she's worked and how well it went, I think Mama Swift would be the most enraged at this point, and Mama Swift being the one that Taylor calls her person. I mean, I think she loves her dad very much, Taylor, but I think Mama is her person, and I do think Mama would be the most annoyed at all of this. So yeah, you let me know what you think. I did have notes written down for this video, but I've lost the book somewhere, so I've probably not said things I intended to say, but I'm sure I'll make another video. But yeah, I've got some catching up to do. But yeah, big shout out to people like the Tilted Lawyer, Omar, Popcorned Planet, Without a Crystal Ball, Is It Not Actually Golden? All of these people that I'm getting kind of some of my information from. So if you are interested in this, some of them you might not be supporting right now, but hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Please do hit like and subscribe and share if you can. And thank you to everybody that's subscribing. I'm picking up some more subscribers now, and I love getting your comments and replying to you. Yeah, and just always do check my description boxes, because I always have free help in there too about my day job. I don't always comment on celebrity things, but I do enjoy doing this. I might have to do more of it on different topics, but I don't really want to get into the diddy case. I'll pick and choose my battles, I think. But this one just spoke to me, I think, for some reason, and it's more that I can talk about the emotional perspectives, I feel like, on this one. And I guess part of it was because I am a bit of a Swiftie and stuff, but I will still be open to it coming out that she has kind of been a little bit shady in this, Taylor. I'll be a bit disappointed, but I will kind of be honest about it and give my opinion if that happens to be so. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Bye bye.